विष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्ववदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतः पदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथामृतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदां सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वञ्चकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामो राम रामो हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। Very happy and grateful to be amidst all of you all here once again. Welcome to our Gita classes, and we are continuing with the character study of the Mahabharat. So far, we have done the character of Yudhishthir and the character of Bhishma. Today, we're going to be studying the character of Draupadi, who is one of the most powerful characters in the Mahabharat. And in fact, she is like the central character of the Mahabharat. So, to help us understand the character of Draupadi, I want to build up something that will help us understand overall natures of people. All of us, we have our own nature. Whatever we do, however we act, it's our nature that makes us act in a particular way. Some people are very aggressive and they act accordingly. Some people are very timid and they act accordingly. Like, typically you hear this dialogue, don't bring out the animal out of me. What does it mean? That means that's your original nature. There is something that you are hiding from the world. And then sometimes that nature comes out. So some people are very talkative. Some people are very quiet. Um, some people are very dynamic. Some people are slow and cool. Some people are shy and very introvert. And some people are very outgoing and very extrovert. Some people are very funny, just jovial and light-hearted. From their childhood only they're funny, basically. There's a friend of mine, who is a professor in an institute, very famous institute, very serious professor. But whenever he opens his mouth, you feel like laughing. That's it. That's the way he is, basically. And he never laughs. I have never seen him laugh till now. But whenever he opens his mouth, you feel like laughing. And there are some people who are very serious and very grave. So basically, if you actually classify your nature essentially falls in three types of categories. There is something known as circumstantial nature. Circumstantial nature means that that's not who you are or that's not how you are, but in a particular circumstance, you act in a particular way. So that's not you essentially, but that circumstance makes you act in a particular way, basically. So if that circumstance is not there, you will not act like that. You will be a different person, basically. So what these circumstances are can be different for different people. And interestingly, some of us, when our circumstance acts in a particular way, you won't even know why you're doing something. You end up doing it. And then much later you realize, oh, that's not me at all. It could be anyone. Look at this picture. Very humble man, very clean man, very simple man. But in a particular circumstance, even a person who is extremely humble can also do strange things. I'm going to show you all something from the Mahabharata, how circumstances make you act in a way that you would never have acted in a normal way. It's very interesting if you look at the way human nature works. Some circumstances force you to act in ways that you would have never acted. Here is the first example from the Mahabharata. Yudhishthir Maharaj, whose character we saw last time. Such a clean man, such a good man, such a calm man, such a gentle man. But I'm going to tell you a story of Yudhishthir from the Mahabharata. When you hear this story, you will say, wow, even Yudhishthir can act like this. If you and me act like this, it's not a big deal because we act like this all the time. But if Yudhishthir acts like this, that's a big deal, basically. I'm not sure whether you ever heard this story from the Mahabharata, but it's an amazing story. It's a very revealing story. How circumstantial nature is very powerful. The story is of the Mahabharat war when Yudhishthir one day came face to face with Karna in a fight. And Karna literally defeated Yudhishthir so badly. Not just defeated him, insulted him, abused him, very hurt. Yudhishthir was not just hurt physically, but he was hurt emotionally, mentally, in all ways. And he was not just hurt, he was angry. Somehow his chariot driver brought him out of the war and he brought him to the camp. While Yudhishthir was in his camp, he was waiting for Arjun to come. And Arjun came, when he heard that his brother is injured like this, Arjun dropped fighting, stopped the war, ran back to the camp to see Yudhishthir is fine. When Arjun entered Yudhishthir's camp, as soon as Arjuna entered, Yudhishthir asked him the first question, have you killed Karna? The problem in all relationships begin with expectations. And those expectations lead to assumptions. Yudhishthir had an expectation that Arjuna will kill Karna and only then come to meet him. And he assumed that Arjun knows what he expects. When Arjun reached there, Arjun said, no, I didn't kill Karna. I came here to first see if you are all right. Yudhishthir got so wild. He started blasting Arjun like anything. He told him, I should not have had faith in you at all. I should have had faith in probably Nakul Sahadev. They would have done the job better than you. Yudhishthir said, I don't even know why I have faith in you. You are a useless person. He tells him, imagine, this is Yudhishthir telling him. He tells him, I wonder why you were born only. Our mother Kunti should not have given birth to you. In fact, she should have killed you in the womb when you were 3 months in her womb. And then Yudhishthir goes on and on and on, blasting Arjun. And he tells him, you talk big things about your capacity to fight. Karna is much better than you. Your Gandiva bow is a useless piece of stick. Throw it in the fire. Now imagine Yudhishthir Maharaj speaking like this. Now, if you and me speak like this, it's okay. We are very human to say things like this. And we can be vicious at times. But Yudhishthir speaking like this is very unlikely. When Arjun heard this, he really got bewildered. He really got shocked. He never heard his brother speak such things. Arjun took out his sword and he was running towards his brother. Krishna was standing over there. Krishna asked him, "Hey, what are you doing?" Arjun says, "I have taken a vow. Anybody who tells me to throw my Gandhi Ubo, I'll kill that person." Yudhishthira told me to throw Gandhi, I'm going to kill him. Krishna says, "You came here to see if he's all right. How come you're going to kill him?" Arjun says, "No, what to do? I've taken a vow like this." Krishna says, "Don't worry, I will help you find a solution." Krishna tells Arjun, if a younger person insults an older person, it is as good as killing him. So he tells Arjun, now you insult Yudhishthira. It is as good as killing Yudhishthira. So Arjun insults Yudhishthira like anything. He says, all our problems in life happen because of you only. He says, if you were not addicted to gambling, we would not have had so many problems in life. Arjun went and blasted Yudhishthira like anything. And after Arjun blasted Yudhishthira sufficiently, he again takes out his sword and now he's going to cut off his own head. Krishna asks him, now what happened? Arjun says, how can I live after insulting my brother like this? Krishna said, don't worry, I have a solution for that also. He tells him, when someone praises himself, it is as good as committing suicide. So all the Instagram and Facebook accounts are suicidal attempts, essentially, praising ourselves. So Arjun so Krishna tells Arjun, you praise yourself now. And then Arjun goes on praising himself like mad. He says, I've defeated Shiva, I've defeated Indra, I've done this, I've done that. Goes on and on talking about his own glories. And then finally, Arjun falls at Krishna's feet. Yudhishthira also falls at Krishna's feet. And they both realize that without Krishna, they just can't function in this world. So I gave you all one example of how a person who is bad, who's normally good, acts bad, right? Due to a certain circumstance. Yudhishthira is normally a very good person, but acted very bad in a particular circumstance. Sometimes you find bad people acting very good in a particular circumstance. Normally they are bad, but in a particular circumstance, they act so good. And you wonder, how is it possible that, this person so bad and is acting so good? In the Mahabharat, you find a story where Duryodhan normally is a very bad person, but in a particular circumstance, he acts very well, very kind, very generous, And you begin to wonder whether this guy is actually generous. But no, this is circumstantial nature. In a particular circumstance, even a bad person can act good. And what is the circumstance? One time during the Mahabharat war, Duryodhan was very upset with Bhishma. He was so upset. He went and insulted Bhishma like anything. He said, you are not fighting a war. You're just doing time pass. You are very, very affectionate towards the Pandavas. Therefore, you're not acting to your full capacity. And he insults Bhishma a lot, just to kind of, instigate Bhishma. Finally, Bhishma gets so upset. He takes out his quiver, and from his quiver, he takes out 5 arrows. And he tells Duryodhan, with these 5 arrows, I'm going to kill the 5 Pandavas tomorrow morning. This is my vow. Like this, Bhishma takes a vow. Duryodhan first takes those 5 arrows. He tells him, tomorrow morning I'll give you these 5 arrows. Because for Duryodhan, those 5 arrows are his, insurance, literally, So Duryodhan takes those 5 arrows and goes to his camp, puts it under his pillow and goes to sleep. And here Krishna, he comes to know about Bhishma's vow. And Krishna is just not getting sleep. Because he realizes that next day morning, Bhishma is going to kill the 5 Pandavas. So Krishna is walking back and forth, back and forth. Arjuna asks Krishna, what happened? What's your anxiety? Why you are so tensed? Krishna said, do you know what has happened over there? Arjuna had no, sometimes ignorance is bliss, isn't it? If you don't know anything, then you're least bothered about something. So Krishna tells Arjun, I want you right now to go to Duryodhan's camp and meet Duryodhan. Middle of the night. Arjun says, come on, why will I go and meet him now? Krishna says, just go and meet him and remind Duryodhana of a promise he had made to you many years back. So Krishna reminds him that many years back, Arjun had saved Duryodhana's life once. This was during a fight in the forest. Duryodhana had gone for a picnic to the forest, to Dwaipavan, and there the Gandharvas were having a picnic. And while the Gandharvas were having a picnic, Duryodhana came there and he told them, you get lost from here, I want to have a picnic here. The Gandharvas didn't care for him. And they had a massive fight with Duryodhana. And Duryodhana lost it. All of his friends ran away. And Duryodhana was tied up like an animal. And then someone ran to Yudhishthir. The Pandavas were in the forest at that time. The reason Duryodhana had come to that particular section was because he wanted to have his picnic outside the house of the Pandavas. Now imagine, there's such a huge forest. You can have picnic anywhere. But he purposely chose that spot so that the Pandavas can feel bad seeing him enjoy. So then someone ran to Yudhishthir and they said, please come and save Duryodhana. He's tied up by the Gandharvas. Bhima and Arjuna were very happy. They said, you know, what we should have done, the Gandharvas have done. Serves him right. Let him die. But Yudhishthir said no. Yudhishthir told Arjun, go and save Duryodhana. And Yudhishthir gave a very interesting answer. He said, for between us, we are 5 and they are 100. But for the world, we are 105. Yudhishthir, even at that point, imagine, you know, he thought from a point of unity. So Arjun went and saved Duryodhana from the Gandharvas. And at that time, when Duryodhana was saved by Arjun, Duryodhana, out of his strange, he was feeling very bad that I took help from Arjun. He said, ask anything. You ask anything you want, I'll give it to you. He said, you want your kingdom back, just take it back. I'll give it to you. Arjun said, no. That time he told him, I'll ask you when I want something. So Krishna reminds Arjuna of that story. And he tells him, go and ask for those 5 arrows. So Duryodhana, he is shocked when he sees Arjun walk into his camp at middle of the night. And Duryodhana asks him, what do you want? So Arjun said, do you remember long back you had made a promise to me? And Duryodhana was waiting to fulfill that promise, because he was just like, there's a burden that he was carrying for long. And then Arjun said, I want those 5 arrows. Duryodhana was shocked. He said, how the hell did you come to know about those 5 arrows? But anyway, Duryodhana had to give it to Arjun. So in this point, in this particular story, if you look at Duryodhana's act of being generous, giving the 5 arrows that were practically his insurance policy, it shows that this guy can also act generous in a particular circumstance. And in a particular circumstance, someone who is very aggressive always can become peaceful. Like Bhima was always an angry young man. All the time he would get angry. But just before the war was declared, the Pandavas decided, especially Yudhishthira and Krishna, they decided that let us go and try one time for peace. Let's try a peaceful resolution. Yudhishthira told Krishna, you go as a messenger of peace. Now, Draupadi was very upset. She was very upset that Krishna decided to even think about peace. He said, come on, how are you thinking about peace when I've been so badly insulted? And then everybody was asked to give their opinion. Should we try for peace once? Arjun said, okay. Of all people, Bhima said, yes, we should definitely try for peace. Bhima would never ever talk about peace. And he was always wanting to kill Duryodhana from his childhood only. But now when they are on the brink of war, Bhima suddenly behaved very different. And he said, yes, we should ask for peace. Now, interestingly, this is not him. This is a circumstance, because he saw there is going to be so much destruction. He saw there is going to be so much chaos, so much loss. In that circumstance, Bhima said, yes, let's ask for peace. So circumstantial nature is not a person's nature. You cannot judge a person when he acts based on a particular circumstance. The second thing that Mahabharat talks about is conditional nature. Conditional nature means we are conditioned to act in a certain way. Why people behave in a certain way? We inherit some certain psychological traits based on our previous life's karma. Becomes a habit many times. Sometimes it is karmic nature of many lifetimes that come and make you behave in a particular way. And no matter how much you try to change it, you can't change it. Like somebody who is physically powerful, bodybuilder, but mentally he may be a brahmana, not having courage. You will see so many people like that. Externally very very big looking, but internally they don't have the courage, they don't have the guts that a kshatriya needs. So that means that just based on how you are, the kind of person that you are, that's not going to change at all. A lot of us, almost all of us, we are born with certain natures. We can call it personality types. We can call it, psychophysical nature. Whatever we want, you can call it. We can call it varna, whatever. But these are certain natures that are a part of us. Just like, each element has a nature. Like neem, the nature of neem is to be bitter. Can you change the nature of neem? Suddenly grow trees that have neem that are sweet? Not possible. Can you have sandalwood trees that are foul smelling? Is that even possible? To have sandalwood trees that smell very bad. Or can you have onions that don't make you cry? You cut onion, you don't cry at all. Basically, everything has a certain nature and that is innate to it. That's called conditioned nature. The human beings also are conditioned to some things. Like, for example, there was a thief who went on a pilgrimage. So this thief used to stealing. Every night he would remain awake, and he would sleep in the day. So, and when he's awake in the night, his hands are itching to steal something. Now, this guy went on a pilgrimage with hundreds of people, and in a holy place, he didn't want to steal. But what to do? His hands are itching to steal. So all night he remained awake. Somehow he like trying his control his urge to steal. Next day morning when people got up, they saw in their bags things were missing. Somebody was missing phone, somebody was missing money, somebody was missing purse, and everybody was missing something or other, and everyone got anxious and worried, and they started panicking. And then this fellow said, he got up and said, "Don't worry, nobody's belongings are missing. They all interchanged. I put them from this bag to that bag because I am a thief. I have to do something in the night, so I didn't want to steal. So I just decided to exchange things from this bag to that bag." So all night he was exchanging stuff. So some people, so the nature makes you behave in a certain way, which is beyond you. Like for example, in the Mahabharata, we find Dhritarashtra, who is conditioned to helplessness. So consistently he felt helpless. What can I do? I can't change my son. So this, of course, this is a common mantra that many parents speak nowadays. What can I do? I can't change my son. So from his childhood till the end of his life, literally to the last breath of his life, Dhritarashtra acted helpless. And he was consistent with his nature till the last breath, basically. Vidura, his brother, had to shake him up, even in the last minute, to come out of that feeling of helplessness. Some people are conditioned to being helpless. We all can choose to become like Dhritarashtra. We have some control over some things, but if we decide, I can't do anything about it, then nothing can actually happen. You can't. You will really not be able to do anything about it. So Dhritarashtra in Mahabharata is conditioned to helplessness. In the Mahabharata, you find Yudhishthir conditioned to goodness, conditioned to being good. All the time he wanted to be good, basically. So we saw in the last session how Yudhishthir's being conditioned to be good became one of the biggest problems of the Mahabharata. And he just couldn't act bad. It's not that he didn't try. He wanted to act bad, but somehow he was so conditioned to being good. People kept taking advantage of his goodness a lot of times. This is the second type of nature. So first is known as circumstantial nature. Circumstantial nature happens in a particular circumstance. That's not you. But in a particular circumstance, when you are exposed to a particular circumstance, you behave differently. All of us have experienced that, isn't it? There are some people who are experts in changing the circumstance of your life. They will do something which will make you act differently. Situations of life sometimes come which make you act differently. That's circumstantial nature. That is not in your control so much. It just happens. And it happens once in a while. Conditioned nature is regular. That is something that happens, that is a part of you. That is very much you. And you can't change it. No one can change it literally. Mahabharata talks about a third type of nature, which is where Draupadi comes in. This is known as constitutional nature. What is constitutional nature? Constitutional nature means what is innate in a person, more deeper than conditions. Conditional nature is more connected to the body. Constitutional nature is much deeper, connected to the soul. It's much deeper than the physical existence. The body has a certain type of nature conditions, but the soul can transcend it. Constitutional nature refers to that nature, which is the internal part of the soul. Like, for example, if you look at India, India is a country which is very prominently a problem-solving country, isn't it? Indians have the ability to solve problems, complicated problems, in very interesting ways. In fact, an entire industry, the software industry, is taken over by Indians literally. Why? They just have this problem-solving ability, and this problem-solving ability is there in us right from our childhood. I mean, in the Western countries, you don't hear of people having repair shops of fans and ACs and mobile phones. You don't find any of these repair shops existing in the Western world. They just replace. They don't repair. Something doesn't work, replace it. That's all. But in India, you don't give it up. Even if something is miserably wrong, you still somehow patch it up and make it work. Starting from chappals, if your chappal stops working, like something, it breaks. We have so many interesting ways of using a chappal which is broken. You go into trains and these fans of the trains are not working half the time. People have very interesting ways of making fans start, right? I remember one of our monks in our temple. He's from the older generation. Right now he's probably about 60, 65, of years of age. But he's from an older generation that is used to Walkmans, So somebody gave him an iPod, 6, 7 years back. And his iPod stopped working. And those who are used to Walkmans and radios, they have a very interesting way of making the radio work when it doesn't work. What do? Bang it, hit it, right? Somehow it works. This devotee, he was using his iPad, hitting it on the floor to make the iPad work because it's not iPad, sorry, iPod. It was not working. He's just hitting it on. We were wondering what's wrong with him, He probably is used to the Walkmans working like that, hitting it like that. But he didn't know technology has changed a lot. But in essence, Indians don't give up. That's their constitutional nature, The whole idea of jugaad comes from the whole psyche of Indians that just don't give up. So constitutional position, it talks about something very deep. All of us, we are in a physical body, but actually we are not the body. We are spirit soul which is within the body. The Atma is the material body is constantly changing, but the spirit soul that is within the body is unchanging. And whenever we say constitutional nature, it is the nature of the soul. That is what we're talking about. And what is the nature of the soul? The nature of the soul is to listen to the voice of God. The nature of the soul is to listen to higher perspectives of life. The nature of the soul is to serve God, to become a servant of God. That nature is your deepest core. It is much deeper than the conditional nature, which is acquired, basically. So, a lot of people in this world do not live by the constitutional nature because they don't know that it exists. They don't have access to it. If you study the Mahabharat, this is where Draupadi is very interesting. Duryodhan, he knew, but he defied his constitutional nature. Duryodhan knew that Krishna is God. He very much knew. But he didn't care for it. Like when Krishna came as a Shanti Doot to Hastinapur as a peace messenger, Krishna came to establish peace. But Duryodhan had a very interesting plan for Krishna. So he offered him a very beautiful throne for Krishna to sit on to discuss peace terms. But the throne that was made for Krishna to sit on was a very, very delicate throne. The idea was, as soon as Krishna would sit on it, he would fall. The throne would break, he would fall. And as soon as Krishna would fall, there would be soldiers coming, running with chains and ropes and tie up Krishna and put him in jail. That was Duryodhan's plan. So when Krishna came in, he sat on the throne as planned. The throne broke as planned. But next what happened was not as per Duryodhan's plan. The next thing that happened was Krishna, he didn't fall on the ground. Instead, he exhibited his Virat Roop. Massive size, huge. And Duryodhan, he's trying to send people to tie the Virat Roop of the Lord. How much rope you need to tie the Virat Roop? How much ever rope you use, you can't tie Krishna. You can't tie the Virat Roop of the Lord. And this guy is attempting to tie the Virat Roop of the Lord. The only person in the past that had managed to tie up Krishna was Yashoda, his mother. And that too, because she loved him. Krishna allowed himself to be tied. And this guy has no love. And he has absolutely no affection for Krishna. And he expects Krishna to allow himself to be tied. And Krishna, he showed him the Virat Roop. The Virat Roop nobody had seen till that point in time. Duryodhan saw. And Duryodhan, after seeing the Virat Roop also, he says, this fellow is a magician. Don't be tricked by his magic. He assumed his magic. Imagine. So Duryodhan, he is telling Krishna, Jhanami dharmam, nachame pravritti. And he says, Jhanami adharma, nachame nivritti. He's telling Krishna, I know dharma, but I can't follow it. And he says, I know adharma, but I can't give it up. This is Duryodhan. So he is very clear that this is how I am. That defiance is based on the ego. The ego that I know. So when a person starts thinking that I can help myself, I do not need any help from anybody else. I can do it myself. To have self-confidence is great. It's very, very important. To think that I'm going to put all my efforts is very, very important. But to think that I can control results, that is stupidity. So here we find Duryodhan somehow strongly felt I can control all results. And that is where the whole idea of not being able to understand the constitutional nature is. So, um, when we recognize this dependence on God, we do not defy our dependence on God. The world, if you actually look at the world around us, it teaches us to depend, isn't it? The world around us teaches us to depend on God ultimately. But it begins with dependence on your own mother. When a baby is born, you baby can't say, I can manage on my own. All of you will get lost now. No. Baby is helpless for first 4 or 5 years, complete dependence, right? Then as you grow older and older and older, you start depending on more and more and more people. Actually, it's not that your dependence becomes less. First, originally, you only depended on one person, your mother. But as you grow older, your dependence only increases till a point of time that you depend on the whole society. And finally, ultimately, we depend on God. Education helps us understand, spiritual education especially, helps us understand that I need to depend. And that's what constitutional nature is all about. But ego makes us feel I don't need anybody. In the Mahabharat, we find Dhritarashtra. He knew it, but he was bound by attachment. So Duryodhan knew it, but he was bound by the ego, defied based on the ego. Dhritarashtra also knew it, but he was bound by attachment. Dhritarashtra was told so many times by Vidura, by Bhishma, by Gandhari also. So many people told him. Vyasdev also told him. But somehow, some people it just doesn't strike. Dhritarashtra was told many, many times. Dhritarashtra knew Krishna is God, but defied. But his defiance was based on his attachment to Duryodhana, attached to his son, badly attached to his son. And that attachment made him literally blind, basically. So Dhritarashtra was a blind man, never ever saw anything in his life. From his childhood, he was born blind. But you know what was the interesting thing? When Krishna showed the Virat Roop in his palace, in the courtroom, Krishna gave Dhritarashtra special vision only to see the Virat Roop. Imagine, the only thing Dhritarashtra ever saw in his life was Krishna. That's the only thing he ever saw. But because he was so attached to his son, he couldn't give up. He couldn't give up that attachment. And he couldn't connect to his constitutional nature. Just like monkeys, when they are caught in the jungles, one of the ways in which these monkeys are caught is very interesting. There's a small bottle kept in the middle of a forest. And in that bottle, they put nuts. The bottle is thin, the neck of the bottle is thin enough that the monkey's hand will go in. But once the monkey closes its fist, holds that nuts and closes his fist, the clenched fist cannot come out. The monkey has to do only one simple thing: open his hand, throw those nuts, then his hand will come out again. So this monkey never does that. Once it catches, he's so attached to that nut, he doesn't leave it. And that's how they get caught. With these heavy bottles, they can't run also. And that, they're not ready to give up those nuts also. That's exactly what happens to people who are attached. They just can't give up their beliefs. Karna, he also knew Krishna. Krishna spoke to him so many times. Karna had a strong understanding who Krishna was. In fact, Krishna went to Karna much before the war and told Karna, you become, and he told him his reality, who he is. And he told him, just agree to join the Pandavas. Yudhishthira will make you the king of Hastinapur. He'll coronate you as a king. Karna says, even if he coronates me as a king, I'll give it to Duryodhana. I'll give the kingdom to Duryodhana. He's my best friend. He sees that Duryodhana is on the side of Adharma. He sees how Duryodhana destroyed everything, but Karna won't change. So Krishna gives Karna so many chances. Personally goes to him and gives him knowledge. What Krishna spoke to Arjuna on the battlefield as Bhagavad Gita, he went and personally spoke to Karna before the war. Same knowledge. But some people get it, some people don't get it. In fact, the next session is going to be entirely on Karna. We will discuss threadbare, the character of Karna, in great details. For all those who have read Mrityunjay, and for all those who have read The Palace of Illusion and all those books that speak about Karna, let us hear what Karna's personality is straight from the Mahabharata of Vyasadeva, and then understand how he thinks. So Karna knew, but he was bound by his ambition, and he was bound with the desire to prove. Sometimes when you want to prove something, Karna, his entire life was to prove that I'm better than Arjun. He spent his entire life with this only one thought: I want to prove that I'm better than Arjun. And to prove that I'm better than Arjun, he was ready to do anything. A lot of people, this thought that I want to prove that I'm better than somebody else, that is the biggest problem. Just like there was one donkey, and this donkey was over ambitious. There were two of them were best friends. They were working with the same farmer, and one donkey ran away, and one donkey was still with the farmer only. So this free donkey one day came to the bound donkey, and he told that fellow, "Why don't you come with me? There is so much grass outside. We can enjoy our life. Why are you sticking to this farmer?" The donkey was tied in that, in the farmer's house. He said, "No, I won't come with you." The free donkey said, "Why will you not come with me?" He said, "You don't understand. These higher prospects here." So he said, "What do you mean by higher prospects?" So this bound donkey said, "I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you why I'm here." So many days back, the farmer's daughter, she made a big blunder. And the farmer gave her a warning. "If you make such a mistake again, I'll marry you to this donkey." He's saying, "I'm waiting for that day." Called higher prospects. So sometimes we wait for something to happen, and in the process, we give up everything else in our life. In the Mahabharat, we find Bhishma knew that Krishna is God, but he was too bound by his loyalty. Loyalty to the throne of Hastinapur and loyalty to his vow. So amazing character, great values, great sacrifice, everything wonderful. But somehow he became the cause of the greatest violence because of his loyalty. If you look at Mahatma Gandhi and his life, extremely loyal to non-violence, but in the process of being loyal to non-violence, caused the greatest violence in the world. Literally, so much violence happened in the pursuit of non-violence. If anybody wants to know more, you should read this book called Why I Killed Gandhi. It's written by Gopal Godse, and it's a compilation of Nathuram Godse's entire statement in the courts. This book was banned in India for many, many years. He speaks almost 150 reasons why he killed Gandhi. Very logical, very systematically written, a very, very, very deeply thought book, basically. So as I said, Bhishma wanting to do good, wanting to be loyal, but his loyalty caused him so much, and he didn't stick to his constitutional nature, which is to understand God and connect with God and live by his dharma. And finally, the Pandavas, they knew Krishna is God. All of them were devotees. Arjuna in particular, greatest devotee of Krishna. They were one of the most powerful warriors in the world. But the only thing is, they kept thinking, what is right? They never once asked themselves, what Krishna will think about what we do. They not even once asked themselves this question, what will Krishna think about us? They only thought, what is Dharma saying? What is Dharma saying? What is Dharma saying? So they're trying to be dharmic, but they forgot to be devotees of Krishna. And they forgot to think what Krishna will think about what we did. The only person in the entire Mahabharat who did not allow her conditional nature to take over her, did not allow her circumstantial nature to take over her, was Draupadi. She lived and acted based on her constitutional nature. She knew Krishna was God. And in her entire life, every single thing she did was based on this thought that what will please Krishna. Draupadi was called as, I don't know how many of you all know this, one of the names of Draupadi is Krishna. She was called Krishna. Why? Two reasons. One, she was dark like Krishna. She had the color of Krishna. And second, she was Krishna's best friend. So Krishna called her Sakhi and Draupadi called Krishna Sakha. Very deep connect. And that connect was very, very deeply spiritual. So when Draupadi was, the Swayamvar of Draupadi happened and Arjun won Draupadi in that Swayamvar, at that point, Arjun and the Pandavas were in the forest because they were actually in incognito. They were hiding from the Kauravas because they just somehow survived the Lakh Palace incident. And they were in the forest. And Arjuna was disguised as a Brahmana when he married her. After he married Draupadi and they reached where Kunti was, Kunti was cooking, and from behind Arjuna and the Pandavas, they said, "Mother, see whom we have, what we have got." Every day they come back and they say the same thing. And mother has a very standard reply. The standard reply is, whatever you have got, share it among you all. Very standard reply. And that's exactly what she said today also. Whatever you all have got, share it among yourselves. And then that shocked the Pandavas. They were utterly shocked because this time they didn't get anything, but they got a beautiful woman whom Arjuna had married and got. So now the question was, why did this happen and how do we deal with it? Kunti felt very, very bad that she spoke something like that because she didn't even see at the back. And the Pandavas, they were shocked because they have never disobeyed Kunti's orders till now. So they didn't know what is right. They were so confused. They were totally bewildered, basically. So at that time, Vyasdev comes in. Vyasdev actually walks in at the right time in their life. So see, all of us, we go through confusing times. All of us go through times that are very, very bewildering many times. And those are the times we need the right kind of guidance in our lives. Even in the most confusing moments, truth comes from higher sources, especially people of wisdom who can guide us and see truth from a higher perspective. So Vyasdev comes in and he tells them a story. He tells them that, in fact, when this happens, this particular thing happens, so Vyasdev comes and he says, you all should marry, all five of you all should marry Draupadi. Yudhishthira Maharaj says, never something like this has happened in the past. How can 5 men marry 1 woman? Vyasdev gives examples from the scriptures. He gives example of Kandu, a lady who married 10 men. And then he gives example of Jatila, another lady who married 7 men in the past. And he says, this is not common, but it is Shastric. And he says, Vyasdev, he tells Draupadi and Drupada one story of Draupadi's previous life. Draupadi in her previous life was a Rishi Kanya, and she had great desire to have a perfect husband. She meditated and invoked the Lord Shiva's presence. When Lord Shiva appeared to Draupadi, Draupadi intensely, in her intense desire to get the perfect husband, she said, Please, I want a husband who has this quality. I want a husband who has this quality. I want a husband who has this quality. I want a husband. She said 5 times, 5 different things. And Shiva said, not possible for one person to have all these qualities. You will have 5 husbands. Be careful what you desire. So sometimes what we desire, it's not practically possible only, even for the gods to fulfill. Sometimes our desires are so complicated that even sometimes God has to create a whole new system for just to fulfill your desire, basically. So Vyasadeva, he explained in great detail about this particular story of Draupadi's previous life. And then something very interesting happened. Yudhishthir Maharaj made a statement. And the statement is very, very powerful in the Mahabharat. Yudhishthir, he, after hearing Vyasadeva, after hearing Kunti, after hearing that whole discussion, he makes a statement. He says, when our mother declared that we should marry, all 5 of us should, marry her. When I heard that statement, Yudhishthir says, listen to this carefully. He says, in my mind, it didn't feel like sin. Now, this is amazing. For all of us, the idea of sin and not sin is very relative, isn't it? We have a way to twist philosophy to fit in our ideologies or fit in our desires. We can twist the whole philosophy to say that, Arey, this is what is right. Why? Because we have selfishness in our hearts. But Yudhishthir is not like that. For Yudhishthir, his mind is so pure that if a thought comes in his mind, it cannot be sinful at all. That's how confident Yudhishthir was. And that is how pure Yudhishthir was. For us, if a thought comes in our mind, you can assume safely it is sinful. Safely you assume it is sinful. But Yudhishthir is exactly the opposite. He can safely assume it is not sinful. That is the kind of confidence he had in his own thought process and in his understanding of Dharma. So when Draupadi was, when they finally all decided that they would all get married to Draupadi, that time Narad Muni comes into their life. And this is very significant in the Mahabharata. This story almost no one knows. But this is the most important story of the Mahabharata, which actually defines Draupadi's character. Narad Muni comes and tells them a story of Sunda and Upasunda, 2 brothers. They loved each other a lot, Sunda and Upasunda. And Sunda and Upasunda had a boon by Lord Brahma. You know what was the boon? The boon was that nobody can kill them except themselves. They can only kill each other. They thought such a boon is the best boon because we are best friends, we are brothers, we can never kill each other. And they started harassing the world like anything. Brahma created a beautiful girl named Tilottama. Tilottama goes to Sunda and Upasunda, and both of them madly fall in love with her. One day, Tilottama comes when both of them are together. Sunda says, hey, meet your sister-in-law. Upasunda says, hey, no, this is your sister-in-law. And they both began to fight. Tilottama says, no, see, I don't mind marrying any of y'all, but you decide, I will marry only one of y'all. And they have a massive fight and they kill each other. Narad Muni tells this story to the Pandavas and Draupadi and tells them, if you don't have a clear understanding based on dharma, based on clear principles and rules, you will end up having fights with each other. So that day, Draupadi and the Pandavas together made some rules for themselves. Very interesting rules. The first rule was, for 1 year, Draupadi will remain with one of the 5 Pandavas. And in that 1 year, when Draupadi is with one of the 5 Pandavas, the other 4 won't even look at her, won't even come in her direction, and won't be in a room privately with her. And if by mistake one of the other Pandavas enters a room where she is in privacy with her that year husband, then the person who enters by mistake has to go for 12 years to exile. One time, Arjun entered when Yudhishthira and Draupadi were together. And Arjun actually went for 12 years to exile because he broke that rule. And then Draupadi also had another rule, rather another austerity that she followed. When 1 year got over, she would perform intense tapasya for many weeks, purify herself, and then the next year she would go to another husband for one whole year. So they had very, very rigid rules that they followed very systematically. It was not like a haphazard thing. And the interesting thing is Draupadi was Deva Amsha. So she had, just like each of the Pandavas were Amsha of one of the gods. Draupadi was Amsha of 5 goddesses together. She was partly the Amsha of Yamaraja's wife, partly the Amsha of Vayudeva's wife, partly the Amsha of Indra's wife, partly the Amsha of Ashwini Kumara's wives. And that's how all the 5 Devis were present in Draupadi. And that is the understanding of who Draupadi is. And plus, she was not an ordinary person. She was born from fire. Just to give you a little more understanding of it, if you remember the story of Duryodhan being captured by the Gandharvas, there is an addition to that story, which is relevant now. When Duryodhan was captured by the Gandharvas, Arjuna and Bhima went and defeated the Gandharvas, and the Gandharvas went away. But Duryodhan is still tied up. It is explained the knot that the Gandharvas put was a very complicated knot. There were only 2 ways that knot could be opened. One is if a Gandharva himself opens it. Second, if an earth person has to open it, it has to be a chaste woman. Only the most chaste woman can open that knot. Now the question was, so they obviously called Duryodhan's wife, knot didn't open. And the condition was a chaste woman should put her feet on Duryodhan's head. Then the knot will open automatically. So they called Duryodhan's wife, knot didn't open. They called Karna's wife, knot didn't open. They called all the women from the Kaurava camp one by one who had come for the picnic. Knot didn't open only. And finally, in that entire forest, only one woman was left, and that was Draupadi. And they asked Duryodhan, should we call Draupadi and try? Duryodhan had no option. He said, okay. And as soon as Draupadi put her feet on Duryodhan's head, the knot opened. That was actually a proof of the chastity of Draupadi, even on a mental level, basically. Draupadi was known as Yajna Seni. And if you know, fire is connected with purity. Fire and purity are very much connected. Anything you want to purify, put it in fire. Doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani, Exactly what happens, right? When you boil milk also, water comes out first. All the water content evaporates. And what remains is condensed milk, right? And you put gold in fire, all the impurities get burnt away. And what remains is intense, pure gold. So similarly, Draupadi was Yajna Seni. She was born from fire. And because she was born from fire, she represents the idea of purity. And anything that is extremely pure should be offered to the Supreme Lord. Draupadi, in her entire life was an offering to Krishna. She dedicated her entire life in her devotion, love, affection, friendship, and great respect to Lord Krishna. In fact, Draupadi's connection with Krishna is even more stronger than even Arjun's connection to Krishna to a great extent. And between Draupadi and Arjun, there was great intimacy and love because Krishna was in the center of both of their lives. Most of the discussions between Draupadi and Arjun would be about Krishna only. And that is how they really bonded so wonderfully together, basically. So Draupadi represents the third factor. So first is chastity, second is purity. The third factor that Draupadi represents is unity. She had the ability to keep these 5 powerful people together. All 5 of them are very different people. Yudhishthira was very different from Arjun, very different from Bhima, very different from Nakul, very different from Sahadev. But imagine the capacity of Draupadi to keep such powerful people together. Therefore, Draupadi represents the principle of unity, where somehow, for a higher cause, the idea of keeping people together, the most powerful people together, that's what Draupadi represents. When Draupadi was at one point during the Mahabharat war, two things happened actually. One was when Draupadi was, towards the end of the Mahabharat war, when Ashwathama was son of Dronacharya, very, very unfortunately and very badly killed all the 5 sons of Draupadi when they were asleep. He mistook them to be the Pandavas and he killed all 5 of them in their sleep. And Arjuna and Bhima ran and caught this fellow, Ashwathama. And Arjuna and Bhima were so upset and so angry, they were going to cut off Ashwathama's head actually. At that time, Draupadi intervened and she said, let him go. And she gave an amazing answer. Why she told them to let him go. She said, I know the pain of a mother. If I have lost my children, I know that his mother, Kripi, Dronacharya's wife, what pain she will undergo if she also loses a son. He said, just forget it. Forgive him. At the end of an entire war, which was primarily created to avenge her insult, right? The entire Mahabharat war is to avenge her insult. At the end of the war, entire war, what did Draupadi do? Draupadi, when she got a chance, she decided to forgive. So the war was an emergency. All the bad people were eliminated in the war. Dharma was established. And now something bad happened. How Draupadi reacted till this point of time is very different from how Draupadi reacts after this point of time. After this point of time, Draupadi forgives Ashwathama. An entire war was waged for Sita. Raman was killed. After Raman was killed, Hanumanji goes to to Sita, Ashok Vatika, and tells her, Raman is killed. What do I do with these 700 demonesses who have been troubling you for the last 10 months? Hanuman asks her, should I kill them? Should I punch them? Should I bite them? Tell me what I should do with them. Sita says, forgive them. Both the Mahabharat and the Ramayana, both the stories are about one woman being insulted. And an entire war happens, an entire generation is destroyed because of one woman being insulted. The Mahabharata says, when a weak person cries tears, the tears of the weak person becomes the puddle in which a strong person drowns and dies. This is the essential message of the Mahabharata. But what is strong person? The Mahabharata teaches you at the end of the story. A strong person is one who has the ability to forgive. Draupadi let go of Ashwathama. And the most amazing quality of Draupadi, you should really meditate on, is the quality of Draupadi's devotion, bhakti. When the Pandavas were in the exile, this is the last story I'm going to share today. When the Pandavas were in exile, and there was a particular point in time where Duryodhan sends Durvas Muni to meet them. Durvas Muni is a very angry sage. Really, very unreasonably angry, Get angry for any reason, basically. So Duryodhan took good care of Durvas Muni in the palace. He had all the facilities too. But at the end of the whole thing, Durvas Muni is very happy Duryodhan is leaving. Duryodhan said, please, whatever benefit I got of serving you, I want my cousins also to get same benefit. Can you go to their house? In the forest, they are there. Durvas Muni said, fine. He went with 60,000 people to their house. Imagine you have a guest to your house. One guest also becomes too much nowadays. 60,000 people coming in, uninformed. So the Pandavas, so Yudhishthir Maharaj, he told them, don't worry, just go and have a bath and come, I'll arrange food for you all. Yudhishthir had confidence in the Akshay Patra. They had a vessel by which they could get unlimited supply of food. So the Akshay Patra would give food as long as Draupadi has not eaten in it. And finally, Draupadi has not washed the vessel and kept it. The moment Draupadi washes the vessel and keeps it aside, the Akshay Patra stops giving for that day. Only in sunrise next morning it starts giving. Now, obviously, most men don't know what's happening in the kitchen, isn't it? Yudhishthir also told something over here to Durvas Muni. He said, "Go and come back. We'll feed you." He never asked his wife before making that commitment. He never asked her, "Did you eat?" He just told. Now Draupadi was in great anxiety because there was no food in the house. Lakshya Patra stopped giving. She had no idea what to do. The Pandavas were also equally worried. And instantly Draupadi, her natural sentiment, she took shelter of Krishna. And interestingly, Krishna just happened to be passing by. So whenever the Pandavas are in desperate need, somehow Krishna must be passing by. And Krishna came in and asked Draupadi, do you have some food to eat? I'm very hungry. Now, Draupadi was really, because already 60,000 people are waiting. And here Krishna also added to that. She didn't mind if she didn't feed those 60,000 people, but not being able to feed Krishna was too much for her. So Krishna told her, get me the vessel. Let me see it. Draupadi went and got the vessel. And Krishna saw the vessel properly. And in one corner of the vessel, there was one small grain of rice that was stuck. Apparently, Draupadi had not washed the vessel properly. So once in a while, that's also okay. It can save you from some calamity. So Krishna removed that one small grain from that vessel and put it in his mouth. And as soon as Krishna put that little grain of rice into his mouth, he felt full. And the 60,000 people with Durvas Muni, they started belching there because they felt suddenly full. Krishna is the root of creation. When you water the root, all the leaves, branches, fruits, and all that get watered automatically. So if Krishna is satisfied, everyone gets satisfied. So Draupadi, by offering that one little grain of rice to Krishna, she managed to satisfy 60,000 people. And that is her devotion to Krishna, which is what is the constitutional nature of Draupadi. So we spoke about these three natures: circumstantial nature, conditional nature, and constitutional nature. Draupadi's character, her resilience, her ability to withstand everything rose from her constitutional nature. A lot of people talk about the injustice done to her and all the bad that has happened to her, but they don't talk about where the strength she got for being able to handle all that came from. Simply because Draupadi had this intense devotion to Krishna. Everyone knew it. Duryodhana knew it, but he defied. Dhritarashtra knew it, but he was bound by the attachment. Karna knew it, but he was bound by his ambition. Bhishma knew it, but he was bound by his loyalty. The Pandavas knew it, but they were bound by dharma. Draupadi knew it, and she decided to focus on that constitutional nature, which is what the essence of Draupadi is. The 5 things that Draupadi represents are these 5 things: chastity, purity, unity, the ability to forgive, and finally devotion. And these 5 things make Draupadi one of the most powerful characters in the Mahabharat. It's not just only her ability to deal and withstand on an external level, but more importantly, her ability to sustain her devotion to Krishna and not lose her faith in spite of everything she went through. Not one single time she blamed God for what she went through. Not one single time she blamed anyone else for what she went through. Every single time she stood very powerfully strong, understanding that her faith and devotion to the Lord will help her go through everything, and most powerfully, still live her with a very human touch. Imagine, she was so human that at the end she could even forgive Ashwathama, who had done so much wrong to her. That's the strength of Draupadi. That's the strength which really makes her so powerful and so amazing. So of all the things that Draupadi represents, I feel these 5 things are in essence something that we can focus on and learn and meditate on in the character of Draupadi. Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. Sorry, I went a little longer. This obviously needed a little more time. Any